The election was rigged. I'll tell you about it. Young people went to the polls, and Fox News sees a conspiracy there. We're going to look back at the election results and why we should replace debates with something different. And finally, Budmo, Ukraine. Thank you for joining me. I'm Richard Bey, and this is Richard Bey Talk, along with my producer, Albert Reinoso.
Hola.
Okay, a lot of you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right, you're.
I know you're doing fine. I haven't spoken to you since the results have come trickling in,
and it was good news.
Yes, I know you love it.
We didn't commit suicide. Imagine if we had committed suicide before the election. I mean, Bill Maher was on. It was almost like he was wearing a shroud. He was singing a dirge right before the election, and even MSNBC was so negative, all of them. We're going to talk about why that happened and why what happened actually did happen and conspiracies. But the good news is this, is that we're going to have at least 50 senators, and probably, I think Warnock is going to beat Walker, and we'll have 51. And there are still 85 appellate and district court vacancies for Joe Biden to fill. So I would say remember McConnell was ramming them through. It was like Lucille Ball with the candies coming out, you know? With him, it was Trump-nominated judges. Well, we got to get to that. So there's 85 left. Let's get that done. And wouldn't you know it, the day after the election, inflation numbers come out. You know, inflation, and they kept telling us, oh, it's the number one issue, and the economy is the number one issue. Well, yeah. All right, it's an issue. I have a toothache. That's an issue. What's the solution? Go to the dentist. He can fill a cavity. He can extract the tooth. But I wasn't hearing any solutions. So inflation, which was 9.1% in only June, it went to 8.2% in September. It went to 8.1% in October. And then, September, October. And the latest numbers released, it's at 7.7%. Now, if I was some sort of Democratic demagogue, I would tell you, oh my God, the Inflation Reduction Act. Look at how it's working. It brought us down from 9.1 to 7.7. But of course, that's not what did it. Probably the actions of the Fed and the opening up of supply lines are doing that. But that's not sex. Believe me, if it was a Republican president, they'd say, look what he did. Look what Trump did. He'd have just like, we had that $20 billion factory in upstate New York that Micron is building for computer chips. Joe Biden should have been there with a shovel, with every television network. Remember with Trump with Carrier, and he did another thing with a Chinese investor. They were always great publicity events. When a foreign company was opening a factory in New York. With Biden, it just sort of went by. So anyway, with the Democrats won, and the hand-wringing on TV. Oh, the Democrats, they donated money to the most radical Republican candidates, like the General Bolduc, or in New Hampshire, who was running against Senator Hassan, or that one person in Michigan who was a Republican who voted for impeachment. But they ran ads, not endorsing him, but telling people, oh, his opponent is more of a Trumpster. He's more conservative. They did the same thing with Bolduc's more moderate opponent in the primaries. And on TV, they were going, oh, this is terrible. How could you do it? Well, I don't hear anybody saying today that the Democrats gained one seat in the House of Representatives because they got rid of that moderate, or they got one other seat in the Senate because Bolduc was such a revolting candidate, and Hassan won her election. I don't see anybody saying, oh, that was a smart move today. But before the election, oh, hey, maybe it's unethical. You want to talk unethical? We can talk on ethical. And the other thing here is everybody's blaming Trump for these candidates that were elected in the primaries. Trump didn't elect them. He may have selected them, but it's the Republicans who voted for these assholes. They voted for the most extreme candidates. Why don't you blame them instead of blaming Trump? I mean, the chef brings out dog shit on a plate. You can say, I think I'll skip that course. It was Republicans chose these candidates in the primaries. Blame them. Now, of course, we're learning now that in some states, not in all instances, but in some states, young people turned out at the polls at higher numbers than they have in the past, and that they made a difference in elections. I think in Michigan and Wisconsin, according to the analysis, that was true. But what are they telling people on Fox News about young people going to the polls? It's a conspiracy. Oh my God. Take a look at this stupidity. Not that one. The clip. the clip.
Their editorial board saying Biden's student debt con job fooled Generation Z for the midterms. Will the kids wake up? No.
Yeah, here's what they went on to write. The New York Post writes, the ploy has to count as a brilliant piece of low-down sneakiness, a pie-in-the-sky promise that cost the prez nothing to make and gained him and his party the electoral world.
The numbers for young people voting for Biden this election, they clearly swung this election for Biden. This is assuming that the student loan program is what did it, and I don't buy it. Here's my takeaway from the election. Indoctrination works. You had Corey DeAngelis on. Indoctrination works, and it's not just in the schools, it's happening through social media. So I don't want to belabor what I brought up before, but essentially big tech is working in conjunction with the Democrat administrations and candidates to turn up their voices on social media, turn down other voices. Our kids are, if this is true, and that's why we need to get to the bottom of it, and it looks like it is based on these studies that have been done by Dr. Epstein, this is an in-kind donation to the Democrat Party. And if it's true, all of our elections are a mirage because we can't have them weighing in like that. So what I'm saying is kids have been indoctrinated, whether it's on climate change, on, you name the issue, they're all in on these woke.
Yeah, they pump out a K through 12 school,
yes.
And then the reinforcement mechanism of social media,
yes.
of what you need to be thinking inside the group think.
Oh my God! Can you believe this idiocy? Number one, kids weren't voting for Biden in this election; they were voting for governor, senator, or state representative. The other thing is, they think that Biden created this loan forgiveness program, knowing that it was going to disappear. Oh boy, what a crafty guy. They're saying this was and the other thing is all of our elections are going to be a mirage because these kids have been brainwashed, indoctrinated. That sort of argument coming from Fox News? Are you kidding me? Now we can look at that picture. Generation Z is laughing at Fox stupidity. Yeah, they came out and voted. Maybe it was because of abortion and what has happened with the right-wing Supreme Court. Maybe it was because of gun safety laws after they've been in high schools where kids have been massacred with other students carrying military-style rifles. Oh, maybe that's the reason. Maybe the economy wasn't their number one issue. But no, it was a conspiracy. The kids have been brainwashed. It's social media, which is linked up with the Democratic Party. Oh my God. You want to talk about indoctrination? I'm going to show you one ad that Ron DeSantis probably won't be running in his presidential bid. Take a look at this indoctrination.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again. Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Ron DeSantis for governor.
Oh, yeah, that's going to make a difference. Trade the Trump for the Trump mini-me. Well, DeSantis is a person that has no qualms about using his office to go after his enemies. I mean, he went after that attorney general. He fired a guy who was elected to be the prosecutor in Florida. He went after, the schools. He went after Disney. Now, what if Ron DeSantis decides to give Donald Trump the Disney treatment? Oh, nice little house you got here at Mar-a-Lago. It would certainly be a shame if your taxes were appraised at $750 million, which is what you said it was worth, rather than the way we're appraising it now. Oh, I don't know. Let's see what they can do about this. Mar-a-Lago and Trump's properties in Florida have gone up. They went up 13%. But if we used Trump's exaggerated appraisals, my God, the tax bill could be monstrous. Now, I told you I was going to tell you how the elections were rigged this time around, and I will. But it wasn't with Hugo Chavez, who's dead, tapping into the machines. It wasn't with election workers having boxes of votes that suddenly showed up. It wasn't with 2,000 mules, all of which have no evidence to support any of those allegations which Republicans have made. But I'm going to demonstrate to you how this election was rigged right now. There's an old magician's trick, you get the con to look at your right hand while you palm the coin with your left. And so all attention is over here. It's all on the voting machines. It's all on the ballot boxes. It's all on the election workers. But over here is the left hand that is actually rigging the elections. Now, in New York State, our legislature created a map that was very favorable to Democrats. Now, it was in defiance of something that Mario Cuomo pushed through in 2014, which was going to limit the ability of the legislature to create partisan gerrymandering.
You said Mario Cuomo.
Yeah, all right, you're right.
Okay.
You're Andrew Cuomo.
Sure.
It was Andrew Cuomo, 24. Thank you for the correction. Everybody can make a flub. All right. So Ron Lauder, who's a billionaire, financed a lawsuit to throw out that map, and a democratically appointed judge threw it out. Now, if the original map had been in place, Democrats would have had 4 more seats in the House of Representatives. Now, I'm not going to argue with you that they should have had 4 more seats, because I believe the map was egregiously gerrymandered, and the state law says that you shouldn't be doing something like that. But we also have that in our Constitution in Florida, and Ron DeSantis just ignored that. He when I first came here, we had a referendum. 63% of Floridians voted for an addition to the Constitution that said partisan gerrymandering will not be allowed in this state. Now, Ron DeSantis, so we have the legislature, which is all Republican, and they came up with a map. It wasn't good enough for Ron. He called in outside Republican national experts to create a map that would give Republicans, and it was borne out in the election, give them 20 representatives from Florida and 8 for Democrats. 20-8. Now, this state, it's almost 50-50. The Republicans have a bit more registration this time around. For years they didn't, but they do. But 20-8, more than twice as many. He also got rid of one minority district. That was a black district. That also may be against the law. He judged that it wasn't. So in Florida, the Republicans were down 4. No, was it the other way around? The Republicans were up 4. The Democrats down 3. Let me double check that. Either way, the Democrats lost seats in Florida because of Ron DeSantis violating the state constitution. So, we lost 4 in New York. We should have had 4 more in Florida. And I'm not even talking about Ohio, where the Supreme Court said you cannot gerrymander in the way that you're doing this to help you win. And what did the legislature do? They just ignored the Supreme Court. So in Ohio, Republicans won 15 House seats to 10 for the Democrats. But they just ignored the court. DeSantis just ignored the Constitution. Wisconsin is probably, the worst example of partisan gerrymandering. But this Republican Supreme Court said partisan gerrymandering is legal, but not if it's against the law in your state, but not if it's in the Constitution. So, yeah, this election was rigged. Different laws for different states that favored the Republicans. Here it is. Republicans were up 4 seats to 20 in Florida, and Democrats got 8 seats. They were down 3 in Florida. All right. So the other thing about this election, looking back on it, and I've said it before, is that the debates are ridiculous. There was a Fox sportscaster who was asking the questions when Walker and Warnock debated. Now, he asked Walker about all the abortion accusations. And what did he say? It's a lie. It's a lie. I mean, the guy didn't say, well, how did she get a get well card with your signature on it? How did she get a receipt for the abortion services? And there's 2 women who did this, who came forward now. So, I mean, there was never any follow-up on the evidence that indicates, yes, he did have these women and help them to get abortions. The other thing is nobody asked him, how many kids do you really have? I still don't even know. In the beginning, he said he had 1 son, then another one popped up and another one. No, they didn't. This sportscaster from Fox never asked a question. And then when DeSantis debated Charlie Crist in Florida, it was with a Sinclair. I don't know if you know Sinclair. Sinclair is basically a station, a group, broadcasting group that is pretty right wing. That person who was running it works for Sinclair. The station was sponsoring it. She never asked DeSantis 1 question about whether he will pledge to fill out his term. Charlie Crist did. And when he did, she said, no, you can't ask him a question. But DeSantis, and he asked it again. Why do we have to follow the frickin' rules and they don't? And DeSantis, I mean, everybody who thinks DeSantis is now the second coming, you're in for, I think, a disillusionment. because Christ really kicked his butt in that debate. DeSantis is great when he can bully high school kids standing behind him, when he can bully reporters and call them enemies of the people. He's great when he has a group that he can demonize and bully. But when he goes one-to-one, man, this guy on the debate stage, he froze like this. And not only like that, when he gets nervous, he has a twitch in his head. You know, maybe I'll look over the debate again and get a clip next time. He's not the guy that you think he is. And if he ever faces Trump face to face, Trump will eat him alive. That's my prediction anyway. All right. Now, these debates, which I thought were so ridiculous, of course, in Oklahoma was the most egregious, where the Democratic candidate for governor explained that the violent crime rate in Oklahoma is higher than New York. And everybody laughed at her, including the Republican opponent, including the moderator. And it turned out she was correct. So what I propose is that we play Jeopardy with the candidates. Now, if you might remember George Bush, when he ran for president, George W. Bush, the son, he was asked to name the leaders of 4 different countries. And I think he knew Taiwan, but they asked him about Pakistan and India. And when they asked him about Pakistan, he said, General. And the interviewer said, yeah, but what's his name? What's your answer? And he just went, General. Another time he was asked for who was the leader of a country, and he said, I don't know. Do you? Now you may think, you know, his PR person on the campaign was Karen Hughes. Do you remember her? She said, oh, we're looking to elect the leader of the free world. We're not looking for a winner at Jeopardy. Well, maybe we should look for a winner at Jeopardy, because when George Bush was elected and we went into Iraq to invade the country, it was George Bush who said, what's a Sunni and what's a Shia? Aren't they all Muslims? I mean, this was a guy who was, I wouldn't say he's stupid, but he was incurious about what went on in the world. His father was the head of the CIA, was president. He could have flown anywhere, visited every country in the world. My God, if my father had that position, there's probably a country I would have never gone to just because out of curiosity. He never did. And that wasn't, you know, an issue in that campaign. So I propose that we play Jeopardy instead of having debates. For instance, we'll have categories like American history, how government works, Supreme Court decisions, American geography, international relations. All right, Alex, I'll take how government works for $50. The answer is 60 votes. Alex, what number of votes does it take to break a filibuster? Hey, $50. All right. I'll take how government works for $100 now. Tax spending bills passed with 51 votes. Oh, that's a tough one, Alex. But you can pass tax and spending bills with 51 votes. What is the process known as reconciliation? Yay! And finally, international relations. China, Mexico, Canada. Oh, Alex, that's an easy one. Which countries are the biggest trading partners of the United States? Yay! Now, wouldn't that tell you a lot more about the candidates than having just somebody go, it's a lie?
Except that Alex isn't the host anymore. So first,
I know that, but you know what we all say? Okay, Alex.
But you mentioned this, but you saw Borgen. I know the TV series.
Yeah.
Remember at the end of Borgen, they did this. They had the candidates, instead of setting up a debate, they wanted to be more fun, and they had this kind of thing.
I know, but not this kind of thing. This kind of thing would be something that demonstrates whether a candidate is ready to sit in the Senate.
Oh,
How could you sit in the Senate and not know the number of votes to break a filibuster? How could you sit in the Senate and not know and it isn't that easy and we're basically, well, no, we have a guy who's mentally ill who may be the senator from Georgia.
Yeah.
All right, let me move on because we do want to get through all this stuff, right? Okay. So it's kind of, I mean, listen, it's fun. It's fun for us to go, who's going to be the next presidential nominee on the Republican side or the Democratic side? I don't think Biden should run again, but people are going, will it be Trump? Will it be DeSantis? Will it be someone else? Hey, it could totally be someone else. Remember Scott Walker? Scott Walker was the governor of Wisconsin. He was the golden boy, and he was running for president. He got knocked out, like in the first months of the primary debates. Giuliani was supposed to, remember Giuliani was running for president? Everybody forgets this. But he got knocked. Where did he get knocked out? He got knocked out in Florida, actually, out of the campaign. Now, in 1986, I interviewed the golden boy of that era for the Republican presidential nomination in 1988. He was a general. He was the guy you might remember when Ronald Reagan was shot, said, all right, I'm in charge here. My God, this guy. You look at him and you can imagine a military uniform on him. You can imagine him playing a president in a television miniseries in 24 or, some other series. I mean, what a jawline. What a commanding presence. Maybe you don't even remember him. If you're under 50, you probably don't even remember General Alexander Haig. And you probably don't remember all the Democrats, except for one maybe, that he mentioned who might run against him in the campaign for president of 1988. Take a look at this.
One of the things that has been said and insinuated and written about is that in the last days of his presidency, he was fairly incapacitated and that you were running the United States government. Leon Jaworski, the special prosecutor for Watergate, called you the 37th and a half president.
That's why I want to make it a full hole.
I know as a military man, you might not want to give away your strategy beforehand. Which of these men would you think would be the easiest for you to go up against?
Well, let me just say this. I think it's wide open. There's no question that between now and election time in '88, there'll be many, many changes in perception of front runners.
All right, then let me just change this for a moment, because I don't want you to break your 11th commandment. Does it say anything about Democrats?
Not at all.
Okay.
Have at it.
How would you like to run against an Iacocca?
I think he'd be a very, very formidable Democratic leader, but I think he is definitely not going to run. He has said it with as much anguish in his voice very recently that I'm inclined to believe him.
All right, out of these men, who would you most like to run against? Just like, let's project down for a moment. Just play Fantasyland. You are the Republican nominee, but you can pick your Democratic opponent between Gary Hart, Mario Cuomo, Ted Kennedy, Lee Iacocca. Who would you most like to run against?
Well, it's a hard choice for me between Kennedy and Hart. But either one of them is a cream puff.
It's a cream puff.
I guess you didn't want to run against Mario Cuomo. But look back on that. Those were all the names. Probably some of them you don't recognize. Do you remember who was the Democratic nominee for president in 1988? If you're under 50, you probably don't. Albert, do you remember 1988?
1988, the Democratic.
Yes. Who was? Here, I should write it down on a paper. You're right. Nobody even remembers the guy.
Was it Mondale?
No.
I mean,
All right.
Wrong decade.
But you're not alone. He
No.
was not a very memorable character, and probably most people don't remember Michael Dukakis.
Oh, Mike Dukakis popping his head out of the tank.
That's
I remember
right.
that. And
That's
of course,
right.
he
I know.
like
But
a
what I'm
crazy
saying is to sit. Well, yeah, it's a nice game to sit here and say what's going to happen 2.5 years from now when there's a presidential election. But you can see how ridiculous that is. Now, one thing that also went against common knowledge was, can you believe when we first started this, didn't you say, Albert, that most podcasts don't last past 7? Right? Well, here we are.
That's what I said. The average is 7. Yes.
7. Okay, here we are. We're almost a year later. We started this podcast as the Russians were invading Ukraine a few weeks before the Russians were on the border. And this week, a big development. The Ukrainian army retook one of their major cities, Kherson. Big celebration in the streets. Take a look at this.
It is still sinking in, the magnitude of this moment. As soldiers move through these scenes of celebration, they're given a hero's welcome. Liberation feels good, and they are holding on to it tight.
Hugely emotional scenes here in the center of Kherson. The military are driving through, they're playing the national anthem, and people are just running out, tears in their eyes, to express their gratitude for liberating the city, for coming in here and bringing it back under Ukrainian control.
These people have lived under 9 months of terrifying occupation. It's easy to understand why they're weeping tears of relief and joy and clinging on to their liberators.
Такі раді, що приїхала наша сила і освободила нас від цих окупантів.
The celebrations carry on across the square all day, and it is infectious. Many here feared this time may never come, and now they're cherishing it. A rare moment of good news in a war which has caused so much pain.
Meanwhile, they have no water, they have no electricity, but they do have a lot of flags. I mean, I read somewhere that they had to hide those flags when the Russians were occupying the city. If they were found with a flag, they would be dragged off and tortured and maybe shot. So they did have those flags. And one soldier said that this reminded him of what happened when the Allies liberated Paris. Now, at the time, most people, the accepted knowledge was Ukraine didn't have a chance. And that, this would be a fairly short war and the Russians would roll right over them. But February 24th, that was this year. Yeah. We did a podcast, and my favorite vodka was something called Russian Standard. And it was one of the few vodkas that was actually made in Russia and sold in America. And it was taken off the shelves. You can't find it anymore, but I didn't care. I wanted to get rid of it. So Albert and I saluted the Ukrainian spirit, the Ukrainian thirst for liberty and Ukrainian democracy in that podcast almost a year ago. Take a look at this. But as I end the show, I want to toast. Now, in Russia, they say Nostrovia. but in the Ukraine,
should I get mine too?
Sure.
Okay, let me get my bottle open.
But in the Ukraine, they say Budmo. Budmo.
What do they say?
Budmo.
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 Budmo, Richard.
So, first off, Budmo, Ukraine.
Budmo, Ukraine.
Budmo, Zelensky.
Oh, another one? Budmo, Zelensky.
Budmo, Kiev.
Kiev too? I'm getting drunk here. Budmo, Kiev.
Oh. And Budmo to all of you who have tuned in today. Wow.
That's good stuff. The Stoli's good stuff.
Ooh, boy. Oh, man. I better not light a match in front of my mouth now. Anyway, thanks once again for joining me. And as always, all my best. Take care. Oh, man. You know, I was bombed right after that. I mean, I don't know how people drink vodka straight without any ice or something to water it down. But right after that, I went to bed and slept for 2 hours. Anyway, thank you for joining me for these 35 minutes on Richard Bey Talk, and Budmo to you. Take care. Bye-bye.